Good afternoon. I wanted to try something I haven't tried before, which is sharpening a gouge. So I'm going to attempt to sharpen this. Not that I haven't ever sharpened a gouge before, but I've never, firstly, I've never done a video, and secondly, I'm going to try to sharpen it with the diamond stone or the diamond plate that I used the other day, and I'm going to try a little bit different method than I've used before. Just for full disclosure's sake, this gouge, let's see if we can get it on camera there, this gouge isn't, once again, it's not necessarily going to be dull. I'm not telling you this is a brand new tool that needs to be set up. It has been used before. But I don't often use gouges because I didn't really do much carving. I only have a handful of carving chisels. I use this, the main reason I even have this is I make a lot of boxes with like sliding lids, and I was at a colonial type house, a museum type of house, and they had similar boxes to the one that I enjoy making, and to open them up, the original makers, they would just put a little, like something like maybe a nail catch, and give the chisel a little whack, and I thought that was a pretty ingenious idea. And it's really very subtle, but it works great, so that's the main reason I use this tool. I also have this is another carving tool I have. It's a file chisel that it's really good for if you have a groove you want to clean up. I actually really haven't used this tool probably in several months, but it is. I do keep this sharp as well. So sharpening a gouge is a little bit trickier than sharpening a chisel because obviously chisels are flat, they have a flat bevel, and as long as your stone or your plate is flat, it's fairly easy to keep it registered. With a gouge, it's a little bit more touch, a little bit more feel. So I'm going to tell you I'm not great at sharpening these, but I do okay. The one thing with gouges is I've seen people, professional carvers and woodworkers, they sort of sharpen their gouges like this. Hopefully you can see that sort of rocking back and forth motion. And that's how I always would sharpen. But I found that it's easier, in my opinion, to register it just like you would register a regular flat bevel chisel or straight bevel chisel, and do your circular motions. And of all the methods I've seen to show how to sharpen gouges, I have seen this in print, but the idea came to me after watching Richard Prentice's Alone in the Wilderness videos, which I had first seen on PBS when they originally aired close to 20 years ago. But just like sharpening a chisel that has a flat bevel, you're trying to raise a bar. Getting close. There's not a bar all the way across. But as I said, this is definitely a little bit more tricky than chisel sharpening. I know there are a lot of pretty accomplished woodworkers that don't really use gouges too much, and even they're not very good at sharpening them. Almost a fool. But you really have to keep your hand steady, or keep your wrist steady, really, and keep your wrist locked, and make sure that you're getting a nice even scratch pattern on your back. this is an older iPhone, so it doesn't have a great camera. But you can see there that it has a, hopefully you can see that it has a nice even scratch pattern. I'll see if I can keep this steady. There's a nice even line all the way across. Just like the other day where the last video I did, it was a beautiful Saturday morning. It was just about 40 degrees, clear skies and sunny. Today it's been raining since 5 a.m. It's now just about 6 p.m. and it still hasn't let up. I always say that when it's sunny out, it never seems like it's going to rain again, and when it's raining like today, it never seems like we're going to see the sun again. So I have a bar across the entire back. Now this is the part that's a little weird. So I have a dowel here, a 1-inch dowel. I used to have a dowel with a piece of leather glued to it, but I just did not seem to find it. So what I'm going to try to do here is just use this dowel straight enough and use this to remove the bar. And then so I did remove the bar. Get this out of the way for a minute. And I'm going to raise the bar one more time. Actually, what I should do, I made a little bit of a mistake there. I should switch to the next level, even though you don't necessarily have to. It's good practice. Spread out. I was on the coarser grit, now I'm on the fine grit. And the other key is to try to make your stretching, your rocking even. I suppose like if you're sharpening like this with the traditional rocking pattern, it's, you know that you're going to have even numbers or an even amount of tension on each side or pressure on each side. But if you're doing it like this, you're sort of guesstimating how many strokes you did on each side of the gouge. So I have a bevel all the way across again. See if we can see here. As I said, this lighting in here is very poor, and I think you can see it there. Dip it down a little bit, and we will try to remove the bar again. This dowel isn't really perfect for this. It's a slightly different radius, but it's close enough. And then what I will do is switch to the water stone bottle. I really don't like sharpening gouges on water stones, only because I'm afraid I'm going to actually gouge the stone with it. I baby my tools, my woodworking tools at least, the tools I used to use for my job and around the house. I treat them as implements, nothing more. For some reason, woodworkers really love to baby their tools. Even when we didn't even pay a lot for them or pay anything for them at all. I would say more than half of my woodworking tools, especially the vintage ones, were given, well over half of them were given to me by friends, family. A lot of times people find out you like to make furniture, they remember that their dad or their grandfather had a plane or some chisels or some saws in their basement that they don't really want. They'd love that for somebody to have them who will appreciate them. I know I've been doing a lot of sharpening videos lately, but sharpening is maybe the most important woodworking skill, even for a person who uses a lot of power tools. And here again, I have to add that I am not advocating for using power tools over hand tools or any method for that matter. I think you should do whatever you like, whatever fits your budget, whatever gets you to make furniture or make things out of wood. I have a bar all the way across. I already did. I just wanted to make sure I was even. And once again, we'll try to see if we can. We probably can't, but it is a nice even scratch pattern and it's polished now. So for the last time, I will get our dowel. Remove the bar. And I can use the strap as well. On the bevel side, which I would always recommend when sharpening any of your chisels, your planes, your spoke sheaves, everything like that. And you can rock it too. Somebody would probably tell you that this method isn't really correct, maybe, but it does work. This is the seam. This is that piece of pine that I've been using because I don't have a whole lot of scrap wood and I don't like the stuff I do save. I save for a reason. But here you go. It's pretty sharp, as you can see. I mean, this is pine, but let's see if we can catch the face of it. And let's see if I can take a really fine shaving. So there's like a little curly type shaving. And you can also take big chunks if you like. I'll see if I can take a really fine shaving with this. It's not too bad. It's a little bit better than the other one. That's a pretty good one. It's nice. You're not going to be able to see this, but it's nice and tiny. Nice and thin. There's more, but this doesn't really take much to see that this is nice and sharp now. It's work ready. Let's see if I have a piece of oak over here. Here's a piece of home center oak, probably the hardest wood on earth. And let's take a nice, really nice, see if I can get a really fine shaving like I did with the pine. But it'll easily gouge if you wanted to carve, there's a thicker piece. And I'll see if I can take a thin one. Got a half of a thin one. And there's a nice thin little curl. This board's only a couple inches long, so I'm not going to get very long. But yeah, I'd have no issue carving the woods that, or using this on any of your typical American woodworking woods, oak, cherry, walnut, the stuff that I normally use. I don't get into exotic woods too much. I can't afford them, and actually don't really particularly care for how they look in most cases, except when you're getting into things like mahogany, which are really beautiful, but they are illegal, I believe. The other thing I want to talk about was I ordered here the kit from Paul Sellers for making a router plane, which I hopefully will get into maybe next month. But it looks, I've seen the video on, or I believe it's a 2-video series on making a homemade router plane. It's something that really interested me, so I ordered the kit and it arrived the other day. And the manufacture or the making process seems really straightforward. It should take, I'm going to take a while, just say around an hour and a half, 2 hours to get the router basically done where it works. And then of course you can do all the little finishing, add decorative touches if you like, chamfering. I usually will chamfer, smooth everything out, keep the edges eased, things like that. But I think this is going to be an interesting project. I will hopefully, maybe I'll film it, I don't know if I will or not, because I will probably use, I have some walnut set aside for it, so I will probably use a table saw to size that, at least to rough size. I'm not going to rip boards by hand. I don't do that anymore unless I have to, and I really don't recommend it unless you're, that's your thing. But I have a table saw, and unfortunately it rarely gets used anymore, but in this case it will be used because it's just silly not to. I don't have the time to spend, at this point, I don't have the time to spend prepping wood by hand, and I just don't have, I will have to do some hand planing because the boards are rough sawn, and the board I have set aside is about 1.1 inches thick. I have to get it down to about 1 inch. Now, when I originally got that, I ran it through a service planer because they were about 1 inch, just over 1.25 inches thick. And I wanted to get a lot, there was literally bark on them, on some of them. So I wanted to get all that removed. I wasn't going to hand plane down boards. People made a big deal about that. I just think it's, well, I'm not going to say what I think it is. You do what you want. But as I said, hopefully I will get at least some of it on film. Maybe I'll certainly do a demonstration video when I'm finished, if and when I'm finished. And I'm hoping to do maybe one more sharpening video. I know they get boring, but I have here, pardon me, this is a transitional jack plane I have from a company, a maker called, I believe it's Doshmer, Martin Doshmer, New York. This was given to me by a coworker, and what I really like about this, I don't care for transitional planes at all. There's people who love them. They're cool looking, but I've never come across, I've finished or attempted to restore and get in the working order more than, at least a half a dozen of them, more than that really. And of all of those, only one that I restored worked the way I thought a hand plane should work, in the sense that it adjusted smoothly. There was no, a lot of times the cap irons on those planes are just garbage, and they just don't hold the plane iron down enough to where there's a very fine line where you need to have that plane iron secure, but it is at the same time it will adjust smoothly, and I've never been able to get one of those to do that. The closest I came was a transitional smoother that a guy I work with, the same guy who gave me this, guy I work with gave to me, and I restored it and I gave it back to him. It was working pretty well. It wasn't working great, but it certainly could be used. I don't know if I would use it as my go-to smoothing plane, but it did work. And he's not a woodworker. He's a somewhat of a collector, and so he just put it on a shelf, and it looks pretty, and that's about it. This is a Sargent that I restored. This belonged to my father-in-law's dad, or I'm sorry, my father-in-law's grandfather. I got this into almost working condition. Well, the good part about it was it had a great, really good tool steel. The bad part is that everything else that is an issue with the transitional plane was an issue with this. But once again, it does work. You could use it as a jack plane, and it would work just fine. But it's not a great tool. But this plane here, it doesn't suffer from the issues that the Sargent and Stanley transitional planes that I've come across suffer from. That is, this has a really beefy cap iron, and it has a really nice, let's see if I can get this apart really quick, has a really nice iron and chip deflector. This is actually super. This is an iron that you would more see on a traditional, wedge-based plane, rather than the transitional planes that Stanley and other companies made. So this plane is, I've never seen one before or since that in the field. I mean, I've never, and it has an unusual adjusting mechanism too. There. But once again, I've never come across one of these planes in the wild, so to speak. This is the first and last version of this brand that I've ever seen. It was a mess when I got it. It does work, but the last time I used it, I noticed that it did need to be sharpened, but I didn't sharpen it, so I think it would be a good video to not only demonstrate this plane, or sharpen, but to demonstrate this plane, which is a really cool plane. It's a really interesting looking plane. I tried to keep as much as the original patina as possible. I did flatten the bottom, but I didn't go crazy. I just got it flat. And you can see the iron is, I mean, it looks like it's sharp, but it does need a little work. So hopefully that will be my next woodworking video that I do. And if you have any questions about sharpening gouges, I'm probably not the guy to ask, but if you do ask, I will try to answer and hopefully help you out. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a good one.